only a nightmare. It's just in my head. It's only a nightmare. It's just in my head.
Back when I started out the TWS hobby, nearly 4 years ago now, one of my big recommendations used to be the Edifier X3 due to their compact size and surprisingly decent audio quality. So it's nice to see that in 2023, or at least the tail end of 2023, Edifier have given us a remix of that product with the X3 Lite. Now, a lot of the brands that I review on my channel are quite difficult to get hold of. Typically, you'll have to go through AliExpress and that long wait and hope that your product actually arrives. That's not the case with Edifier. I'm not sure about the US and Europe, but certainly at Amazon UK, you can get these next day and they're currently selling for $29.99. Hopefully with Black Friday round the corner, you might see some discounts on that very soon. Check back in the description. Hopefully I'll be able to get you a discount code or something like that. The X3 Lite is quite a basic product, certainly in terms of features. You don't have active noise cancellation. You do have app support and gaming mode, but that's kind of about it. This is aimed at those buyers who just want a plain and simple TWS with no frills that sounds good and does all the basics well. And the unboxing reflects this. The branding is professional without looking like it's trying too hard. The manual is in so many different languages. I stopped counting at 15. The manual is quite small though, so if you're anything like me, you'll probably need your reading glasses on to be able to read the text, although the diagrams are quite useful in terms of telling you what your controls are. All of this is quite academic because you can get to know most of this through the app, including the controls, which are pretty much fully configurable. You also gain a bag of spare tips and an A to C USB charge cable. The case design is extremely compact and really portable. This will fit in your trouser pocket without any problems at all. And they're the kind of buds that you can take out if you're exercising, just wearing shorts, something like that. You don't want something taking room up in your pocket. Then this is one of the better cases around for that. The case measures 54mm wide, 42mm high with a thickness of 23mm, so it's absolutely tiny. It's light as well, weighing just over 30 grams, and it's charged with USB-C only. The port is located at the rear. And when you plug it in, you do get indication that the case is charging through a very small and quite faint LED at the front. Aside the gold Edifier logo screen printed on the top, it's a bit of a generic looking case. It's quite minimalist with a matte grey plastic finish. From a usability perspective, it's fine. It does feel a little bit cheap and you get the impression that it will scuff up in your pocket pretty quickly. Its competition in this sort of price bracket and this level of performance are the likes of the SoundPEATS Mini, the QCY T17 and the Tronsmart Onyx Pure. And whilst the lack of a friction fitted hinge on the X3 Lite is a little bit of a frustration, they aren't any different to any of their competition in that respect. The X3 Lite are a compact, round-shaped TWS without a stem, and it's a more conventional fitting TWS with a traditional rounded 6mm diameter nozzle. This means that it has a slightly more invasive fit than these modern oval-shaped designs, which some people like, some people don't, but I found them pretty comfortable. Provided you can get a decent seal, the isolation can be very good, and you will need that because there's no active noise cancellation on this model. On the outside of a quite large flat touch control area, you've got the Edifier logo printed in gold, and on the inside there's quite good curvature to give you better stability and isolation. And in terms of those controls, double tap plays and pauses, triple tap cycles through your tracks. There's no single tap and no volume control by default, but you can set volume control to tap and hold or whatever button configuration you like other than single tap in the Edifier Connect app. You can mix and match the configurations across your left and your right bud. If you want the left to only turn your volume up and your right to hail voice assistant, for example, there's no restrictions on you being able to set it in that way. Fair play to Edifier because they're the only one of the products that we've compared here that does have that ability to customize the controls in the app. Whilst at first the buds look a bit bulky, when they're in your ears they don't look that way, and they certainly don't feel that way either. From the side and the front profile, they do look quite subtle. And compared with the competition that we mentioned previously, I don't think there's much between any of them really when it comes to stability, comfort and fit. Those three are quite similar in terms of ergonomics. The only one that's different is the QCY T17, and it's also thinner with a shallower insertion. For me, it is a slightly more comfortable bud, but at the same time it doesn't give you as good isolation. The buds are IP55, dust and water resistant. That means that you can use them outdoors, and if you're treated to a spot of rain, or if you're using them in the gym and you're going to subject them to sweaty conditions, then you don't have to worry about anything going wrong. I put them to the test across a few different gym sessions. They stood up well on the treadmill, and there certainly wasn't as much occlusion as I was expecting. Also use them for doing weights across various different sets, and again they stood up well, and whilst they don't have active noise cancellation, the passive isolation was good enough to drown out the noise from the gym. The IP55 rating kind of marries up with the rest of their competition, which are predominantly IPX5. You gain some added dust resistance with the Edifier. Audio on the original X3 was one of the highlights, and once again they've tried to take some of the lessons that they've carried over from the X3 into the X3 Lite. So you've got a very punchy, enjoyable V-shaped sound signature that translates well to particularly to electronic music, house, techno and pop. When we take a look at the frequency response measurements, you can see that classic consumer V-shaped sound signature. This is a really bassy set, and to get the most out of that subwoofer sound, you have to push them quite far into your ears, but when you do, wow, the sub bass hits you and shakes right through you. And because of that lack of mid bass, there's not too much harmonics to it. There's no bleed into the mids whatsoever, so it's a really pumping heavy sound. It's not my ideal sound signature, but if I compare it with something like the Earfun Air Pro 3, which are also bass cannons, I much prefer the sound of the Edifier because you don't get that blurred, disattached sound that you do with the Earfun. Female vocals in particular are front and center. The trebles are okay as well, they're quite crispy and it's a quite bright sounding set. For me, I found that it became quite fatiguing quickly, so I reverted in the app to the pop preset, and I found that this improved the overall sound immeasurably. You get 4 presets in the Edifier app, including the default. Classical and rock, I didn't really notice too much of a change in the sound signature, but as I said, pop is certainly my preference. The X3 Lite don't have a custom EQ unfortunately, but they're not alone in that respect, and only the Tronsmart offer alternative presets. Although they are manual, they're not through the app. Comparing the sound to some of those other products, the T17 is a warmer sound. It's certainly nowhere near as much of a bass cannon, but there's more presence in the mid-range. The T17 are cleaner sounding and have better instrument separation, but they aren't quite as energetic. The SoundPEATS Mini, similar to the X3 Lite, has a mid-bass thump rather than a great deal of texture, but the X3 Lite definitely trumps it on sub-bass. Female vocals can sometimes sound a bit thinner on the Mini. Out of the box, the trebles are a little bit less fatiguing on the Mini, and there's a little bit more air to the sound. The Tronsmart Onyx Pure is the least impressive sounding of the 4. There's a little bit of mid-bass bloat in there, and there's not really enough of a contrast between the frequency ranges to make vocals or instruments sound particularly prominent. From a detail and imaging perspective as well, this is comfortably the worst of the 4. If you like an energetic sound with a heavy sub bass, then you will definitely appreciate the X3 Lite. Volume on the X3 Lite is really loud. Outdoors, where there's a greater need to drown out some of those environmental sounds, I had it set to around 70%, and this was more than adequate. And indoors, where you're not fighting with the elements so much, it was set at around 50 to 60%. This was a comfortable volume and I could hear everything perfectly adequately. That in turn has an impact on the battery life. Generally, manufacturers' estimates are set to 50% volume, so I didn't get far off the advertised 6 hours from single use. In fact, I went over 6 hours on the first 2 full cycles and only just missed on the third. So in terms of single use battery life, whilst on paper they fall a bit short of the competition, due to that real life performance, there really wasn't much in it between any of them. Same thing when you prorata that across total playtime, where most of the sets will give you between 3 and 4 additional charges. In real life tests, they're all coming out around that 24 to 26 hour mark, and I think that's more than adequate for the average user. The absence of quick charge is admittedly a little bit disappointing, although not altogether unexpected at this price. Connectivity is strong. They've upgraded to a Bluetooth 5.3 chipset as opposed to the 5.0 that was used in the original X3, and it passed with flying colours in the tests where I tested the distance to get as far from the source as possible, and also in a congested area I had no dropouts at all. And next up, we're taking a look at the call quality. This is how you can expect the X3 Lite to perform in a very quiet indoor scene where you've been able to reduce all those environmental sounds around you. Next up, I'm going to take you through a couple of samples, as always, one in a busy indoor scene and one outdoors where you're having to battle with the wind and the elements and engine noises, etc. So we can see in a real life scenario how Edifier's environmental noise reduction copes with those environmental sounds. So we're testing the Edifier X3 Lite. I'm in a reasonably busy coffee shop here in the UK at the weekend, so it's full of people, full of groups of tables, there's lots of industry chatter, there's the sound of the baristas making coffee, preparing food, etc. This is how you can expect them to perform on calls in schools, colleges, university corridors, stuff like that. So we're testing how the Edifier X3 Lite performs on your voice calls, and it's perfect timing because, as you can see, there's quite a bit of wind coming through. Wind noise does tend to be that Achilles heel when it comes to conducting voice calls for TWS. And walking towards quite a busy intersection here in a city in the UK where you've got a mixture of traffic noise, so you've got the engines of cars coming through. We've also got lorries. This is a cut through for in an industrial estate. We've got the sound of surface residue because it's rained overnight. These are all of the things that you can expect to get in the way of your voice call when you're on the daily commute, when you're walking to school, college, etc. Latency on this model is really good as well. I got lip synchronization on YouTube videos quite easily. There's also gaming mode, which you can select in the app. And for casual gamers, I think this will bring the latency down even further. So if you're a Roblox player or PUBG on your mobile, it's going to synchronize those sound effects a little bit better. And when you activate gaming mode, either through triple tapping the left button or through the app, you'll get a little voice prompt saying game mode. And one of the particularly nice things about the Edifier Connect app is you can actually adjust the volume of those voice prompts. So if they're a bit too loud for you and they're a bit annoying, you can reduce them down to a very quiet level. The Edifier app is a pretty basic app overall. You do get visibility of the battery remaining in your buds, although not the case. And aside the things we've already seen, you might find My Earbuds useful, and there's also a shutdown timer if you want to use them for falling asleep. The X3 Lite is maybe not the most groundbreaking or exciting set that I've reviewed this year in terms of features and functions or fancy codecs, but they do all the basics really well. They're a compact, well-fitting set of earbuds that give you protection against the elements, an engaging sound, decent battery life and customizable controls. They're ultra portable as well, especially the case, so if you're looking for something that you can pop in your pocket, maybe a spare set that you can use for heading to the beach or going to the gym, then the X3 are another good option in that sub $30 category. Do give the video a like if you found it useful and consider subscribing to the channel as well. For now, it's ReganCipher signing off.